The punch landed like a freight train from the Rust Belt tracks back home, splitting Brooks' lip open against the cold metal of the high school locker. Blood tasted like copper pennies and regret as Jake's sneer twisted into something feral. His voice a venomous whisper, "Faggot thinks he can stare at me like that?" And in that frozen heartbeat, as the hallway spun into a blur of jeers and shuffling feet, Brooks realized the real bruise wasn't on his face. It was the scar that would never heal. The one that whispered he was never safe. Not even in his own skin. That was 15 years ago. In the flat, unforgiving sprawl of Elmwood, Ohio, a town where cornfields stretched like endless regrets and Friday nights meant bonfires lit by boys who punched first and asked questions never. Brooks Harlan had been 17. All gangly limbs and unspoken dreams. The kind of kid who sketched wildflowers in the margins of his biology notebook instead of dissecting frogs. He wasn't loud about it. Being gay, it was in the way his eyes lingered a beat too long on the curve of a teammate's neck during gym class. Or how he'd blush at the rom-coms he'd sneakwatch on VHS in his grandma's attic. But Jake Whitaker saw it. The golden boy quarterback with a jaw like chiseled granite and a laugh that echoed like thunder over the football field. Saw it and made it his mission to grind Brooks into dust. It started small, shoved shoulders in the cafeteria, accidental spills of Gatorade down his back. Then came the whispers, "Harlan's got a crush on the whole damn team," spreading like wildfire through the bleachers. By junior year, it was full-on war. Jake and his crew cornered Brooks after algebra, pinning him against the brick wall behind the gym, the air thick with the scent of cigarette smoke and crushed gravel. "Say it," Jake had growled, his fist cocked like a loaded gun. "Say you're a queer, and maybe we'll let you walk." Brooks' voice cracked like thin ice. I'm gay." The words hung there, heavy as the Ohio humidity. And Jake's laugh was the cruelest sound, a bark that summoned echoes from every redneck holler in Appalachia. They didn't stop at words. Fists flew, sneakers stomped, and Brooks learned to dodge into bathrooms to cry. His reflection in the cracked mirror a stranger with swollen eyes and a split soul. Teachers turned blind eyes, small-town code for boys will be boys, and his parents. Buried in double shifts at the auto plant. Chalked it up to roughhousing. Only his sketchbook knew the truth, pages filled with charcoal smudges of Jake's face. Not in hate, but in a twisted ache Brooks couldn't name. Because even then, amid the blood and bruises, there was something magnetic about Jake, the way his sweat-slicked hair curled at his temples after a game, the rare flash of vulnerability when he'd catch Brooks staring and look away first. It was sick, Brooks knew, but trauma has a way of tangling desire with dread. Graduation came like a parole hearing. Brooks bolted for New York City on a partial art scholarship to Pratt Institute, trading Elmwood's flat horizon for the jagged teeth of skyscrapers. The city swallowed him whole, subways rattling like his heartbeat, galleries humming with voices that didn't whisper slurs. He changed his major to graphic design, interned at a boutique ad firm in Soho, and by 25, he was Brooks Harlan, freelance illustrator with a walk-up in Brooklyn and a Tinder profile that read, "Artists Seeking Muse." No drama. Dates came and went, baristas with sleeve tattoos, baristas with ironic mustaches, but none stuck. The ghosts of Elmwood lingered in his hesitation, in the way he'd flinch at raised voices in crowded bars. It was a drizzly October evening in 2025 when fate, that capricious bitch with a Brooklyn accent, decided to rewrite the script. Brooks was at a queer lit reading in a cramped Williamsburg bookstore, The kind with exposed brick and fairy lights strung like drunken fireflies. He'd submitted a short story, his first, raw and bleeding about a boy who loved his tormentor from afar, and the editor had called it visceral poetry. Sipping a lukewarm IPA, he scanned the room, hipsters in oversized sweaters, a drag queen holding court by the mystery section. Then, across the haze of cigarette smoke wafting from the alley door, he saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the same dark hair as Jake but softer, longer, brushing collarbones that begged to be traced. He wore a leather jacket over a band to Nirvana, faded like a memory, and jeans that hugged hips. Brooks suddenly forgot how to breathe around. The man laughed at something the bartender said, a low rumble that cut through the murmur of turning pages, and when his eyes met Brooks, it was like lightning cracking the skyline, Hazel pulling Brooks in like gravity. "Excuse me," the man said later, sliding onto the stool beside him as the reading wrapped. His voice was smooth gravel, Midwest roots polished by city edges. "You were the one who wrote that piece about the cornfields and the bruises? Killed me." "I'm Ryan." Brooks' hand trembled as he shook it, strong grip. "Calluses from what? Guitar strings? Construction? Brooks." "And yeah, that's autobiographical." Unfortunately, he forced a smile. But inside, his pulse thrummed like a bass line at CBGB's Ghost. Ryan leaned in, close enough for Brooks to catch the scent of sandalwood and rain. "Ohio boy. I'm from a shithole town out that way too. Elmwood." "You know it." The name hit like Jake's fist all over again. Brooks' beer soured in his throat. "Yeah. Small world. Too small." Ryan Whitaker, Jake's older brother. The one who'd shipped off to the Marines right after high school. The golden child who'd left Brooks' hell unchecked. But Ryan's eyes held no malice. Just a quiet curiosity. And as they talked about Basquiat's fury on canvas, the ache of coming out in red states, the way New York could heal or hollow you, Brooks felt the ice crack. For the first time in years, he didn't flinch. They exchanged numbers under the bookstore's neon glow. And by midnight, Brooks was home in his Bushwick apartment, staring at his phone like it was a grenade. "Text him." His reflection urged from the bathroom mirror, eyes still shadowed by old ghosts. "Or stay safe forever." He typed, "Great meeting you." "Coffee tomorrow?" The reply buzzed back in seconds, "Hell yes." Devotion? My treat." The next morning dawned crisp, leaves carpeting the sidewalks like confetti from a forgotten parade. Ryan was already there, 2 cortados steaming on the reclaimed wood table, his smile disarming as a summer storm. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted, pushing a cup over. "Your story. It stuck with me. Felt like looking in a mirror. Minus the art degree." Brooks sipped, the coffee bittersweet on his tongue. "What part?" Ryan's gaze dropped to his hands, fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "The part about wanting something you shouldn't. The bully who becomes your shadow. To self-deprecating. My little brother's a dick, always was. Football star back home. Thinks the world's his locker room. Broke my mom's heart when he came out swinging at everyone different." Brooks' heart stuttered. "Little brother." But Ryan's tone was laced with sorrow, not pride. And as they wandered the high line after autumn air nipping at their scarves, the Hudson glittering like fool's gold, Brooks let himself lean into the pull. Ryan talked about Afghanistan tours that left him with nightmares and a purple heart. About coming out post-discharge in a VFW hall full of grizzled vets who bought him beers instead of throwing punches. "Took me years to unlearn the hate they drilled into us," Ryan said. His hand brushing Brooks accidentally, or not, on the railing. "But you're out here creating beauty from the bullshit." That's brave. By their third date, a picnic in Prospect Park with craft brews and Ryan's off-key rendition of Wonderwall, Brooks was gone. Fallen utterly into the soft terrain of Ryan's laugh. The way he'd tilt his head when listening, like Brooks' words were scripture. They kissed under a canopy of turning maples. Ryan's lips tentative at first, then hungry, hands framing Brooks' face like he was porcelain. "I've wanted this since the bookstore," Ryan murmured against his neck, breath hot as forbidden secrets. And Brooks believed him, because in Ryan's arms, the past felt like a faded Polaroid, not a fresh wound. Weeks blurred into a rhythm, lazy Sundays sketching in Ryan's loft in Greenpoint, where exposed beams creaked like old bones and the bed was a tangle of sheets and whispered confessions. Ryan was a carpenter by trade, building custom furniture for Brooklyn brownstones, his hands steady where his stories weren't. "Jake's still back in Elmwood," he'd say over takeout pad thai, chopsticks dangling forgotten. "Runs the family garage now. Married some girl from high school, white picket fence bullshit. But I hear he's not happy. Drinks too much. Yells at the TV during games. There was no love lost. Just a brother's weary pity." And Brooks swallowed the bile of memory, nodding like it was ancient history. But history has teeth. One night, tangled in Ryan's bed after a marathon of The Wire and Merlot, Brooks' phone lit up with a ghost, Jake's name, pulled from some forgotten contact sync. The text was simple. "Stark, heard you're in NYC. We need to talk." G. Brooks deleted it, but sleep evaded him. Ryan snores a distant rumble. What did Jake want? Apology? Blackmail? The old fear coiled in his gut. But Ryan stirred, pulling him close. "Bad dream," he mumbled, lips brushing Brooks' temple. "Just the past," Brooks whispered, burying his face in Ryan's chest. The heartbeat there was steady, real, anchor in the storm. For now, it was enough. Fall deepened into a kaleidoscope of amber and rust. And with it, their love unfurled like the last roses clinging to fire escapes. Ryan introduced Brooks to his queer-found family, a motley crew of ex-Marines turned baristas, drag kings who moonlighted as welders, all gathered in a dive bar off Bedford Avenue where the jukebox spun KD. Lang and the shots flowed like absolution. "This is Brooks," Ryan announced one sticky November night, arms slung possessively around his waist. "The guy who's got me believing in second acts." Cheers erupted, backslapped, and Brooks felt seen, not as the bullied kid from Ohio, but as a man worthy of toasts and tangled dances under pulsing lights. In return, Brooks shared his world, late-night studio sessions where Ryan posed shirtless against whitewashed walls, muscles etched in the golden hour, while Brooks captured him in swift strokes of charcoal and acrylic. "You're my muse," Brooks teased, smudging a thumb across Ryan's cheek, leaving a streak of cobalt blue. Ryan caught his wrist, eyes darkening with that hunger Brooks craved, the kind that erased locker room echoes. "And you're my redemption," he'd reply, voice rough as sandpaper, before pulling him down onto the drop cloth, paints forgotten in the frenzy of skin on skin. but cracks spiderweb beneath the surface? Fine as the veins in autumn leaves. Ryan's PTSD flared in quiet moments, a car backfiring on Atlantic Avenue sending him rigid, hands fisting the sheets, nightmares where he'd wake thrashing, murmuring apologies to ghosts in Pashto. Brooks learned the ritual, soft words, a glass of water, the press of his body like a shield. "You saved me tonight," Ryan would gasp, clinging like a man adrift. And Brooks, who knew the weight of unseen wars, would hold him tighter, whispering, "We're in this trench together." The first real fracture came at Thanksgiving. Ryan's mom, Evelyn, invited them to Elmwood, a neutral ground. She insisted, after Ryan spilled about "the artist who's got my heart." Brooks balked. Visions of corn-siloed purgatory flashing like bad acid. "Jake'll be there," he said flatly. Over burnt toast in their kitchen. Ryan's face fell, that boyish vulnerability cracking through. "I know. But Ma's asking. I want you to see where I come from. The good parts. Not just the scars." Reluctantly, Brooks packed a duffel, sketchpad, anxiety meds, the flannel Ryan loved. The drive was 8 hours of I-80 purgatory, endless semis and truck stop diners slinging greasy eggs, and by the time they pulled into Elmwood's faded welcome sign, Brooks' stomach churned like the Ohio River in flood. Evelyn's house was a squat rancher on Maple Street, porch light flickering like a hesitant beacon, the air thick with turkey brine and wood smoke. She enveloped Ryan in a hug that smelled of lavender and regret, then turned to Brooks with eyes sharp as cut glass. "So you're the one taming my wild boy. Come in." Sugar, pies in the oven. Jake arrived late, engine roaring like a challenge, his wife Tara trailing with a Tupperware of green bean casserole. He was broader now, gut straining his flannel, hair buzzed military short, but the sneer was etched permanent. Their eyes locked across the harvest table, turkey carved, candles guttering, and time folded like cheap origami. "Harlan," Jake grunted, fork spearing a yam like it owed him money. "Fancy seeing you here." Ryan stiffened beside Brooks, but Brooks forced a nod, voice steady as rebar. "Whitaker." "Been a while." Conversation limped on, small talk about the Browns' losing streak, Evelyn's bridge club scandals. But under the linen cloth, Ryan's hand found Brooks, squeezing like a lifeline. Jake's gaze flicked there once, twice, a shadow crossing his face, not hate, Brooks realized with a jolt, but something haunted. "Hello." "After pie." As rain pattered the tin roof, Jake cornered Brooks in the mudroom, cigarette dangling unlit from his lips. "Didn't think you'd show balls enough to come back." His breath reeked of bourbon, eyes bloodshot. Brooks' pulse hammered, old instincts screaming run. But he held ground, chin up. "Not here for you." "Here for him." Jake barked a laugh, bitter as black coffee. "Ryan? Yeah. He's the soft one. Always was. You know he wrote me letters from the sandbox, begging me to stop being such a prick." He lit the smoke. Inhale ragged. "Guess I didn't listen." "But you were always staring." "Harlan made me." He trailed off, flicking ash into the sink, voice dropping to a rasp. "Made me question shit I didn't wanna." The confession hung, toxic as exhaust. Brooks' throat tightened, pity warring with rage. "You destroyed me." "For what?" Your own fear. Jake's face crumpled. Just a flicker. Before the mask slammed down. Get out of my house, he muttered. But it was Evelyn's voice from the hall that broke the spell. Boys? Coffee's on. They left at dawn. Ryan silent behind the wheel. Brooks sketching furiously in the passenger seat, jagged lines of Jake's haunted eyes. What happened? Ryan asked finally, as Cleveland's skyline pierced the fog. Brooks sighed. Pencil stealing. Closure? Maybe. Or just more ghosts. Ryan reached over, thumb brushing his knuckles. We'll make our own family. No Whitakers required. Back in Brooklyn. The idyll resumed, but the Elmwood poison seeped slow. Ryan withdrew into workbenches and whiskey, sketches piling unanswered on the fridge. Brooks threw himself into a commission, a mural for a queer youth center in the village. Vibrant figures emerging from shadows, fists raised in defiance. This is us, he told Ryan one night, paint splattered and exhilarated, pulling him into the studio. Rising from the dirt. Ryan's kiss was fierce, desperate, hands roaming like they could erase the miles between them. They made love on the floor amid drop cloths, bodies slick with sweat and cerulean streaks. Ryan's whispers a litany, I love you. Brooks. Good. I love you. In the afterglow, curled against his chest, Brooks traced the tattoos snaking Ryan's ribs, eagles and anchors. Faded from sandstorms. Promise me, he murmured. No more secrets. Ryan's eyes shuddered. Just a beat too long. No secrets, he echoed. But the lie hummed like a frayed wire. December brought snow like shredded wedding veils, blanketing the city in hush. Their first Christmas was a fever dream, string lights in the loft. A Charlie Brown tree scavenged from the curb. Eggnog spiked with rum and reminiscence. Ryan gifted Brooks a custom walnut frame, etched with wildflowers, for your next big break, and Brooks countered with a portrait, Ryan as Achilles, vulnerable heel exposed, but armored in light. My warrior, he said, unveiling it by the fire escape window. City lights twinkling below. But on New Year's Eve, as fireworks cracked over the East River, Jake's text resurfaced, not deleted, but screenshotted in Brooks' camera roll. A digital poltergeist. Ryan saw it first. Phone slipping from Brooks' pocket during a midnight kiss. What the fuck? The words exploded soft, then sharp. Ryan's face draining to ash. My brother? You've been talking to him? Brooks' stomach plummeted. One text. Before Thanksgiving. I deleted it. Ryan paced, boots thudding on scarred floors. Why didn't you tell me? Jesus. Brooks, after everything I said about him? Hurt laced his voice, raw as exposed nerves, and Brooks reached out, desperate. It was nothing. A ghost. You're mine now. But Ryan recoiled, eyes stormy. Ghosts don't text. And if it's nothing, why keep it? The argument spiraled, accusations hurled like snowballs, old wounds ripped wide. Ryan stormed out into the blizzard, door slamming like a guillotine, leaving Brooks alone with the portrait's accusing gaze. Hours ticked to dawn. Brooks huddled under blankets, phone silent as a grave. When Ryan returned, frost-rimed and hollow-eyed, he didn't apologize, just collapsed beside him, murmuring, I can't lose you. Not to him. They clung through the night, fragile as frost. But the seed of doubt had taken root. January thawed the rift. Or so they pretended. Dates resumed. Ice skating at Bryant Park, where Ryan twirled Brooks until laughter bubbled free, poetry slams in the Bowery, hands intertwined under cafe tables. But Jake's shadow lengthened. Calls from Evelyn, innocent check-ins, turned probing. Jake's going through a rough patch. Divorce papers and all. Asks about you. Brooks says he owes you. Ryan overheard one. Face thunderous. Tell her to keep him away. But Brooks, ever the empath, the artist who saw beauty in broken things, felt a treacherous pull. Pity for the boy who'd punched mirrors after punching him, curiosity about the man who'd confessed in a bourbon haze. He didn't respond to Jake's sporadic texts, sorry for the past. Coffee? But he didn't block him either. The betrayal brewed slow. A pot left too long on the boil. Ryan's trust frayed at the edges, checking Brooks' phone when he showered. Silences stretching like taffy at dinner. It's like Elmwood all over, he snapped one February night, after a gallery opening where Brooks laughed too long with a cute curator. You looking at me like I'm him. You're not, Brooks pleaded. Cornered in their bedroom. Walls closing like locker doors. You're everything he wasn't. Then prove it. Ryan's voice cracked. Vulnerable as a fresh scar. Cut him off. For us. Brooks nodded. Tears hot on his cheeks. And that night, he blocked Jake's number. Deleted the screenshots. But the act felt like amputation. A piece of his story severed. In the quiet aftermath, as Ryan slept, Brooks slipped to his sketchpad, drawing not wildflowers, but thorns, Jake's face morphing into Ryan's. Love and hate indistinguishable in the gloom. Spring arrived tentative. Cherry blossoms hesitant against gray skies. Their love, battered but breathing, bloomed anew in small mercies. Weekend hikes in the Palisades, where Ryan carved their initials into birch bark. Rooftop barbecues with the found family. Toasts to fuck the past. Brooks' mural debuted to acclaim. The New York Times called it a queer odyssey etched in urban grit, and Ryan was there. Front row. Eyes shining like he'd hung the moon. Yet the undercurrent pulled stronger. Evelyn's calls escalated, Jake in a downward spiral. Bar fights and bail bonds. Whispers of the Harlan Kid as his fixation. He wants to make amends, she begged over a crackling line. For Ryan's sake too. Brooks hung up. Gut churning. But the seed sprouted. Late one April afternoon, with Ryan at a job site in Queens, he unblocked it. One coffee. Fingers trembling. Neutral ground. Then done. The reply was instant. Starbucks? Times Square. 4 p.m. The cafe was a tourist maelstrom, accents clashing. Steam hissing from espresso machines like accusatory sighs. Jake waited in a corner booth. Diminished, paunchier. Eyes webbed with red. A styrofoam cup clutched like a rosary. You came, he said. Voice gravel over glass. No sneer. Just weariness. Brooks slid in opposite. Arms crossed like armor. Make it quick. Jake leaned forward. Elbows on scarred formica. I was a monster. Scared shitless of what you made me feel. That stare in the halls? It wasn't just you being. It was me. Seeing myself in it. The words tumbled. Halting. Coming out too late. A sham marriage crumbling. Therapy sessions where the word repressed echoed like indictment. I hurt you to kill it in me. And Ryan. I drove him away too. Brooks' chest ached. A bruise reigniting. You think sorry fixes fists? The years I hid. But anger ebbed, revealing the boy beneath, the one who'd sketched Jake in secret longing. Why now? Because you're with him. My brother. And I can't let my poison touch that. Jake's hand twitched across the table, then withdrew. Tell him. Tell him I'm trying. For all of us. Brooks left with a nod. The city swallowing him whole. But the weight lingered. That night, over Low Main in the loft, he confessed, every word, unvarnished. Ryan listened, face a mask of stone, then shattered. You went to him? After I begged. The roar built. A tempest, accusations of betrayal, echoes of Elmwood's cruelty. You're just like the stories you write, chasing the villain for the plot twist. I went for closure. Brooks shouted back, voice breaking on the edge. For us, to bury it so we could live. But Ryan was gone, bag packed in a whirlwind of curses and slammed doors. I need space. To see if this is real or just another war story. The latch clicked final as a verdict, leaving Brooks in the echo chamber of empty rooms, sketchpad mocking from the table. Days bled to weeks. Brooklyn's bustle a blur. Brooks wandered the mural site, adding thorns to the figures' crowns, drowned sorrows in dive bar whiskeys, found family orbiting like worried moons. Evelyn called, give him time. Punny. Whitakers are stubborn as Ohio clay. But time carved hollows under his eyes. Doubt a constant companion. The climax crashed in May. Under a sky bruised purple. Ryan texted, Central Park. Brooks arrived breathless. Heart a war drum. To find Ryan on the rowboat dock. Wind whipping his jacket like flags of truce. I talked to Jake, Ryan said. Voice raw from unshed tears. He told me everything. The coffee. The confession. Betrayal's knife twisted, Jake's olive branch. Snapped in the relay. You think I... No. Ryan stepped close. Hands cupping Brooks' face. Thumbs tracing jawlines etched with grief. I think you're the bravest man I know. Facing him. For me. For us. The kiss was salt and storm. Desperate as drowning men. I ran because I'm scared. Of losing you to my family's curse. But you're not him. You're light. They collapsed onto the grass. Words pouring like rain, fears unpacked. Wounds cauterized. Ryan admitted his own ghosts, guilt over leaving Jake unchecked. The letters burned in desert sands. Brooks shared the sketches. The tangled love-hate of youth. I fell for you, he whispered. Because you're the brother he could never be. As fireflies ignited the dusk. Ryan pulled a small box from his pocket, a key. Etched with wildflowers. Move in. Officially. Let's build something unbreakable. Summer scorched in. A humid haze that turned sidewalks to griddles and lovers to languid seekers of shade. Brooks and Ryan's life wove tighter, the loft now theirs in earnest. Walls blooming with Brooks' murals, vines of color climbing toward skylights. Wildflowers nodding in frames Ryan carved from reclaimed oak. Mornings began with coffee brewed strong as resolve. Ryan's lips brushing Brooks' temple as he murmured, Morning, artist, before vanishing into the workshop downstairs. Afternoons were stolen hours. Brooks at his drafting table, Ryan hammering joints into submission, the rhythm of mallet on wood a counterpoint to pencil on paper. Their love deepened in layers, like Brooklyn's strata of brick and bone. Ryan opened up about the Marines, not the heroics, but the fractures, buddies lost to IEDs, the numb detachment that followed, how coming out stateside felt like defusing a bomb with trembling hands. "You make me feel whole," he'd say, tracing Brooks' collarbone in the afterglow, fingers lingering on faded scars from teenage brawls. Brooks reciprocated with stories stripped bare, the Elmwood nights he'd climb to the water tower, spray painting affirmations in the dark, "You are enough," only to watch them buffed away by dawn patrols. "You make me believe it," he'd reply. And in those confessions, they forged a sanctuary, impervious to the city's clamor. Yet humanity's thread is spun fragile, prone to snags. Jake's redemption arc stuttered forward, tentative as a fawn's first steps. Evelyn relayed updates, meetings in church basements, a job coaching Pee-wee football where he taught no hits below the belt as gospel. One sweltering July weekend, he drove up unannounced, truck rumbling into Greenpoint like a prodigal's plea. Ryan found him on the stoop, six-pack in hand, not for drinking, but peace offering. Brought IPAs. Non-alcoholic. "Can we talk?" Brooks watched from the window, heart a conflicted drum. Ryan hesitated, then nodded, and the brothers vanished into a nearby park, benches worn smooth by immigrants' tales. Hours later, Ryan returned alone, eyes red-rimmed but lighter. He owned it, he told Brooks over cold pizza on the fire escape. City horns a distant symphony. Every punch, every slur. Said meeting you, seeing us, flipped the switch. No hacks. No hallmarkters. But a truce, Jake's number unblocked. Texts sparse as desert rain, go birds after a win. Proud of you. Bro on Ryan's birthday. Brooks felt the shift. A tectonic plate grinding toward grace. He sketched Jake anew, not the monster, but a man mid-metamorphosis, features softened by regret's chisel. Ryan saw it, thumbed the edge with reverence. "You're turning poison to paint." "How do you do that?" "Love," Brooks said simply, pulling him close. "The kind that forgives without forgetting." August brought heat waves that warped the air, and with them, a commission that appended their idol, a graphic novel adaptation of Brooks' short story, picked up by a major indie press. "Queer survival in the heartland," the editor gushed over Zoom. "With your illustrations? It'll gut-punch the world." Deadlines loomed like thunderheads. Brooks holing up in the studio till midnight, takeout cartons piling like casualties. Ryan adapted, cooking farm-to-table experiments, corn ribs charred with chili oil, nods to Ohio roots, and leaving notes on the fridge, fuel for my favorite revolutionary. But exhaustion breeds fissures. One storm-lashed night, as thunder rattled the beams, Brooks snapped over a misplaced sketchbook. Of all things, "I can't breathe here. It's like Elmwood all over, everyone needing a piece." Ryan recoiled, hurt flashing like lightning. "I'm not them. I'm trying to hold space." The fight escalated, words as weapons, Ryan accusing Brooks of emotional sabotage, Brooks hurling Ryan's PTSD as a shield. "You run when it gets real." Doors slammed, Ryan crashing at a Buddy's in Bushwick, Brooks pacing till dawn, regret a bitter tide. By morning, texts bridge the gulf. I'm sorry. Come home. Ryan arrived with donuts and defeat. We're both battle-scarred, he said, flour-dusted hands cupping Brooks' face. But I choose the war with you. Fall circled back. Leaves a crimson carpet underfoot, and their bond tempered stronger. The graphic novel launch was a whirlwind, a packed reading at McNally Jackson, Ryan in the corner beaming like a lighthouse. Critics raved, a raw hymn to resilience, and Brooks dedicated it silently to the three of them, victim, villain. The bridge between. Jake sent a card. Scrawled in block letters, read it. Cried like a bitch. Thanks. Winter whispered in on nor'easters. Snow sealing the city in white hush. Christmas redux, a tree laden with ornaments hand-blown in Brooklyn glass-blowing shops. Gifts wrapped in newsprint comics. Ryan proposed not with a ring, but a blueprint, sketched on drafting paper. A tiny house in the Hudson Valley. Our forever off the grid. Brooks' yes was a sob, sealed with a kiss tasting of pine and promise. But drama's shadow lingers, unbanished. New Year's Eve found them at a rooftop bash in Dumbo. Fireworks blooming like defiant hearts. Amid the revelry, Jake appeared, uninvited, but with Evelyn in tow. Her arm looped through his like a vow. Surprise, Ryan said. Voice tight but trying. Hugs were awkward. Champagne clinked with cautious toasts. Jake pulled Brooks aside later, under the whisper of willow branches strung with lights. I got a sponsor. And a date. Guy from the garage, mechanic. Burly as hell. His grin was sheepish. Took your story to heart. About loving the wrong shadows. Brooks clapped his shoulder. The touch electric with absolution. Write your own ending. You deserve it. As midnight told, Ryan drew Brooks to the railing. City sprawled below like a jeweled beast. To us, he toasted. Glasses chiming. The bullies we beat. The brothers we build. Their kiss drowned the cheers. Deep and devouring. A vow etched in starlight. Yet humanity demands its due, not tidy bows, but thorny crowns. Spring 2026 bloomed treacherous, Ryan's old unit called. Reactivation whispers for a humanitarian op in Eastern Europe. Non-combat, he assured. Packing duffel with quiet efficiency. Just logistics. 2 months. Brooks nodded through the fear. Sketching send-off portraits till his hands cramped. Ryan as Odysseus. Sea-salted and steadfast. The airport goodbye was a gut punch. Ryan's hug bone-crushing. Whisper fierce, wait for me. Build the house in your head. Brooks drove home through tears. Loft echoing hollow. Days stretched to elastic. Studio work a distraction. Found family dinners a bomb. Jake checked in unexpectedly, a care package of Ohio Buckeyes and bad jokes. For the home front. Then, the call, week 6. A convoy ambush, RPG fire. Chaos in the Carpathians. Ryan airlifted. Shrapnel in his thigh. But alive. Minor, the CO downplayed over satellite crackle. Hero shit, shielded a local kid. Brooks flew standby. Landing in a Warsaw hospital that smelled of bleach and borscht. Ryan pale but smirking under fluorescent glare. Told you I'd come back, he rasped. Fingers intertwining with Brooks over 4 lines. Recovery was a slog, stateside rehab in a VA center upstate. Brooks commuting weekends with sketchpads and smuggled IPAs. Jake visited once. Awkward in khakis, bearing a Whitaker's quilt stitched by Evelyn. Family armor, he muttered. And for the first time, the word fit, tentative, but true. By summer's end, Ryan walked unaided, Kane traded for crutches, then nothing. They broke ground on the house, a modest A-frame on 10 acres near New Paltz. Wildflowers seeding the foundation. Our Elmwood, Ryan joked. Hammer swinging true. Brooks designed the interior, walls for galleries of their lives. Windows framing sunsets that bled gold. Autumn Harvest brought the novel's sequel commission. Brooks' voice now a chorus. Jake's own story emerged, a memoir pitch to the same press. From locker room to looking glass. They met for coffee in the city? Neutral as ever. But the booth felt like a confessional. You started it, Jake said. Stirring sugar into black. Your guts. Made me mine. Brooks smiled. Genuine as dawn. We're all just boys chasing light. Winter wrapped them in the half-built home. Wood stove crackling against frost. Ryan proposed properly this time, a ring of hammered silver. Wildflower engravings, under a canopy of stars. Snowflakes kissing their lashes. Marry me. Brooks Harlan. Let's make the ghosts guests. Not gatecrashers. Yes, Brooks breathed. And the world narrowed to that yes, echoing from Ohio Hollows to Hudson Hills. The wedding was spring simple, a meadow clearing. Found family in wildflower crowns. Evelyn dabbing tears. Jake best man in a suit that pinched. Vows exchanged like blueprints. I promise to hold your shadows. To paint our dawns. Rings slid on. Kisses sealed with cheers. And as they danced under string lights, Nirvana crooning soft, Brooks felt the arc complete. Not erasure, but evolution, bully to brother, wound to wisdom. Years later, with a studio edition and a dog named Achilles, Brooks would sketch their stories coda, 3 men on a porch, beers in hand, laughing at sunsets. Human. Forgiven. In America, the vast, bruised heart of it, love wasn't a battlefield won, but a garden tended, thorns and all. The epilogue unfolded in quiet revolutions, the kind that don't make headlines but rewrite souls. By 2028, the Hudson Valley house stood sentinel against the Taconic Hills. Its A-frame angles softened by climbing ivy and Brooks' muraled eaves, scenes of cornfields transfigured into prairies of possibility. Figures entwined in hues of hope. Ryan's carpentry had evolved, custom pieces for queer-owned businesses, credenzas with hidden compartments for love letters, tables scarred like honest lives. Furniture with stories, he'd quipped to clients, while Brooks illustrated book covers from his sun-drenched studio, each a portal to resilience. Jake's memoir hit shelves that fall. A gritty gut punch titled Blindside, a quarterback's queer reckoning. It climbed indie lists. Jake touring VFW halls and high school assemblies. Voice steady as he unpacked the playbook of privilege. I was the bully because I was scared, he'd say. Eyes finding the back row where Ryan and Brooks sat. Hands linked. Backlash came, trolls on X decrying woke sports, but so did letters, kids from small towns. Your book saved me from becoming you. Evelyn thrived in the glow. Her bridge club now a book club. Porch swing creaking under tales of her boys' triumphs. She hosted holidays in Elmwood still. But the rancher felt less like a cage. More like a crossroads, Thanksgivings where Jake's mechanic boyfriend grilled ribs with Italian flair. And Brooks sketched candids of the chaos. Their marriage wasn't flawless porcelain, it was kiln-fired clay, beautiful in its chips. Ryan's limp lingered on rainy days, a twinge that sparked old nightmares. But Brooks learned the language, hot baths drawn, sketches abandoned for massages that melted tension like wax. Brooks' doubts resurfaced in deadline droughts, imposter syndrome whispering fraud from the fields, but Ryan countered with mixtapes of Springsteen anthems, drives to overlooks where they'd fuck in the truck bed, reclaiming bodies from memory's grip. One crisp October eve, as harvest moons hung low, conflict crested unbidden. "J called?" Voice frayed. Marco left. Said I'm still swinging at shadows. Ryan bridged the call to speaker, the loft filling with his brother's unraveling therapy lapses. Bar stools as crutches. "Come up," Ryan urged. "We'll fix this." Jake arrived at midnight, truck idling like a hesitant heartbeat, face haggard under sodium lamps. They sat on the porch, beers cracked, stars pricking the void. "I fucked it," Jake admitted, head in hands. Pushed him away like I did everyone. Afraid he'd see the real me, the prick under the polish. Brooks, who'd nursed similar fears, spoke soft, "Then show him." "The man who wrote that book? He's worth seeing." Ryan nodded, arm around Jake's shoulders, a gesture years in the making. Dawn broke with Jake crashing on the couch, waking to pancakes and plans, a mediated coffee with Marco, AA rededication. The reconciliation stuck, tentative as green shoots, but it healed something primal in the Whitaker line. Jake proposed to Marco that Christmas, on one knee in the garage, amid oil stains and redemption, and Ryan officiated the summer wedding, Brooks capturing vows in watercolor washes. By 2030, their circle expanded, a Sigget's belly rounding with promise, a child to inherit wildflowers and warrior tales. Pregnancy brought its tempests, Brooks' anxiety spiking like summer storms, Ryan's protectiveness bordering on possession, but therapy wove them tighter. Sessions in a converted barn where counselors spoke in metaphors of roots and repair. The birth was a Brooklyn hospital blur, cries piercing the pre-dawn hush. A boy with Ryan's hazel eyes and Brooks' defiant chin. Named Elias, Hebrew for, "The Lord is my God," but to them, simply, light. Fatherhood reshaped them, sleepless nights traded for lullabies. Ryan's bass rumbles soothing colic. Brooks' sketches now charting milestones, tiny fists clutching crayons. First steps toward wildflower beds. Yet the narrative's humanity lay in the unpolished edges. Elias' toddler tantrums echoed old echoes, testing patience till Ryan snapped, "I'm failing him." Brooks held the fracture, whispering, "We're learning. Like we did. Uncle by choice." Visited with greasy-fingered repairs and stories sanitized for small ears. His own life steady, a podcast on sports and sexuality. Marco's hand a constant anchor. One golden August afternoon, 5 years wed, they gathered at the Water Tower, Elmwood's relic. Repainted by community hands in a queer pride mural, Brooks' design at its heart. Jake climbed first, Marco steadying the ladder, Ryan hoisted Elias on shoulders, Brooks trailed, sketchpad tucked under arm. At the summit, wind whipping like applause, they unfurled a banner, "Love Rises." Below, the town sprawled transformed, not utopia, but amended, pride flags on Main Street lampposts, a youth center in the old gym bearing Brooks' name. We did this, Ryan murmured. Arm around Brooks. Elias giggling between. Jake met their eyes. Nod waited with what-ifs absolved. Yeah. We did. As sun dipped, painting the world in honeyed hues, Brooks felt the story's close, not an end, but a comma. Life's plot twisted on, Elias questions about why Papa limps, Jake's keynote at a national conference, Ryan's first solo exhibit of furniture with soul. But in the marrow, it was this, men mending what hate had marred, love a verb fierce as fists once were. In America's grand, groaning tapestry, from Rust Belt ruins to River Valley rebirths, Brooks Harlan learned that falling wasn't folly. It was flight. For the Buly'S brother. Not in spite of the past, but through its fire-forged grace. And in the quiet nights, with Ryan's snores a steady tide and Elias' breaths soft as prayers, Brooks sketched onward. Not scars, but stars, constellations charting the human heart's unyielding bloom.